of equipment and manufacturing. Now, what are the basic structures put in place for this economic, for equipment and manufacturing to strive? You cannot have manufacturing if you don't have the proper equipment. As mentioned by Elijah Ahmed just a little while ago, some of the equipment we used to have becomes obsolete because of the change in time. Uh, we are now moving or living in a modern world. What was obtained some 10, 20, 30 years ago is not what is being obtained now, especially with the change of trends in the society now. The pandemic itself, all of us are wearing face masks, which originally, or some 2, 3 years ago, if you see someone with a face mask, you will begin to wonder, is this guy from the health institutions or what? How can I possibly be moving about with face masks? Then there's something wrong with my face or something like that. But today it has become the norm. And we are all trying to get out of it. We want to go back to the normal. But can we really go back to the normal? So it has changed dimensions. By changing that dimension, then new infrastructure needs to come into play for us to live in the reality. And what are the reality now? We do businesses now virtually. At a point in time, sometimes last year, we will not be here. All of us were locked down. The facilities that we have, airports, roads, rails, everything come to a stop. All of us were locked in our houses, where we became prisoners of our own selves, and then for us to survive, we had to now go back to IT. Now, because of that, if we don't have facilities to deliver robust IT system in Nigeria, will not have survived the economy. Thank God for the little facilities that we have, and we have that. A broadband network in partnership between Lagos State government and the telecoms industries to make sure that they have a robust IT facility is deployed in Lagos State is being done in collaboration with the network providers. So these are the future now. We have to provide such facilities, such systems that will actually drive us through the evolving situations as we progress in life. These will not happen or will not increase economic development if we don't have these basic infrastructures. We have seen how businesses died, creating poverty, you know, increasing the gap between the haves and the have-nots because of the COVID, and even some interventions, not only in Nigeria or Africa, but across the globe. I remember Biden at his campaign has been insisting of about $1.9 trillion to come in as some kind of intervention to Americans because of the COVID-19, and which he really fought for it through the legislatures so that it can be passed and he will be able to actually disburse these funds. Now, basically, funds that are made or are meant to be deployed into infrastructural development have now been diverted to sustaining lives and people. So if we have proper infrastructures in place, you know, whether IT, whether roads, air travels, excuse me, air travels and what have you, you know, we have to make sure that those facilities are in tandem with reality. If they are not in tandem with reality, then there will not be an economic growth and development. Then there is this issue of the climate change. What are the facilities, what are the infrastructure that needs to be deployed so that we can mitigate this climate change? That brings us to sustainable infrastructure. In sustainable infrastructure, we have to look at how do we generate electricity, energy. Right before the beginning of COVID, there is issue of renewable energy. There is issue of sustainable waste management. There is issue of sustainable water management system. There is issue of sustainable transport system. Now, this cannot happen if we don't deploy the right infrastructure for them to strive. As societies progresses and move towards what we call smart cities, where we need to have an efficient and effective system that will increase and provide more jobs opportunities and more job opportunities for the residents and economic well-being, then we have to look at those infrastructures that needs to be sustainable, within the diminishing natural resources. So these are some of the things that I would like us to look at and think about as we go back to our various businesses, and see how we come up with this kind of sustainable infrastructure in Nigeria for the good of all. For us in Trust Synergy, that is what we are trying to do. We are looking at how do we create a synergy between the various sectors of the economy that is sustainable and is environmentally friendly, because we are going through diminishing natural resources and with an increasing population. And we need to provide for the present population while at the same time, preserving for the next generation to come. So infrastructural development has to take into consideration what will be today and what will come tomorrow. And we cannot do that until we look at now what is being termed as sustainable infrastructure. So I hope with these few points of mine, we're able to understand how infrastructural deployment, enhances economic development. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for Mr. Najib Abdul-Salam. Ladies and gentlemen, while I was seated listening to the speech, I came to the conclusion that in all we do, even as we thrive and we strive to, develop infrastructure for the economy, it all points down to one thing. These infrastructure will all be managed by the human factor. And if the human factor is not properly taken care of, irrespective of how much you put into all of this infrastructure, it will come to naught at the end of the day. So ladies and gentlemen, the next session is also going to be very informative, but it's going to be more or less like a panel session. I won't be handling that. We have a well-able lady who will be doing that. And it's going to be talking on human capital development and welfare in manufacturing sector. And you would agree with me, ladies and gentlemen, which is largely dependent on human capital development. And so for manufacturers and employers, this is the section where we get to understand how we treat the human capital we have, who are going to also be managing the infrastructures and the machine and equipment and everything that we build, their individual skills and their well-being and mental health. Because if your employers are not mentally stable, it will in turn have its effect on your machine, because that's how they're going to manage all of your equipment and everything. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call on this amazing lady who is an identity and communications coach, a founder of Red Instinct. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I make welcome on stage Stephanie Kadiri. Please put your hands together for her.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are you doing? I know it's about manufacturing, and manufacturing is somewhat hard work, but you can still smile somewhere. So turn to your neighbor and just smile. Don't say anything. You know, usually if you were in church, you say, turn to your neighbor and say, you look good. Don't say you look good. Just turn and smile. And they can't see your smile. So, no, you know, we have learned to smile through the face masks. You learn to smile with your eyes. Many people don't. So I hope you have learned. Just in case you don't, turn to someone. Don't take your face mask down. Just smile with your eyes. It's a skill. I hope Corona has helped us to learn. Okay, but thank you for this opportunity. Well done. I want to congratulate and celebrate the convener of this amazing event who has done fantastic thus far. The speakers have been on point. It's been interesting, it's been informative, it's been instructive, and I trust and believe that beyond just coming together to talk about something, we're not just going to talk, but we're going to do something about what we have talked about and do something about what we have heard. Today, the session, we're going to be talking about human capital development and welfare in the manufacturing sector. So I'll quickly read up something and just a bit of a brief to introduce the section to us. The session, I beg your pardon. Human capital development is seen as a focal point. I would remove seen. Is a focal point for pivoting industrial development, for reducing the level of unemployment and increasing the supply of entrepreneurs in any economy. However, the effect of human capital on sustainable industrial development in Nigeria has not been adequately explored. And we hope that this session would address the correlation between human capital and economic growth. What roles should the government and corporate society play to achieve this? I would only be moderating this session, but I have amazing panelists I would like to make welcome. First, not the least, or in no particular order, Dr. Mojisola Olateru Olagbegi. Pardon me, you know we are a diverse culture. Some of us, we used to use machine gun to shoot names, but just forgive us. I say it with love and with total honor and respect. She is the co-founder and partner technology and entrepreneurship of the Workplace Center Limited. Please put your hands together and make welcome Dr. Mojisola. She was the one smiling with me with her eyes. And then the next person is Mrs. Bola Adeniyi Taiwo, the co-founder and managing partner of the Workplace Center Limited. Yes, I told you. I won't be surprised if you are the third person because they all have the skill of smiling with their eyes, and I already spotted that. And the third person, Mrs. Biola Omotayo Benson. I said it, didn't I? The partner and business services, I beg your pardon, of also the Workplace Center. Okay, I'd like to sit here. Okay, it's okay. Have a seat, ma'am. Have a seat, ma'am. All righty then. There's a microphone there, and we're just going to get right onto it. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Stephanie Kadiri, but please call me Steph Red. Somebody say Steph Red. Steph Red. Steph because it's the short version of Stephanie, and Red because, isn't it evident, it's my favorite color, and the extra D shows the emphasis. So, madam, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, madame. Mesdames, en français on dit mesdames. It's easier, but in French, in English, it's limited. You just say madame. Madame says, or madams. Madams. In French, you say makes it easier. So tell me, madam, I'll start with you, being that you're closest to me, and you were the, okay, no, it wasn't you, it was her, that I'll come to that. All right, so tell me, what do you see as the connection between human capital development and industrial development? Human capital and industrial development. What's your perspective towards it?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Human capital. So I'm Biola Omotayo Benson and partner business services at the Workplace Center. And it's a pleasure to be here to be speaking on human capital development, an area that as an organization we are very passionate about. So in terms of human capital development and the relationship with economic industrial development, I think that's a very important one. And I want to really thank the keynote speaker for setting the foundation for the discussion. So I'll say that as an organization, as families, as the economy at large, we're only as strong as our weakest point. So in terms of human capital development, we have particularly our focus is in the manufacturing industry. And the manufacturing industry is one that employs a lot of people, employs a lot of labor, human capital to be able to deliver products and services that will in turn, aid economic growth. Now, if the capital, the human capital, is not developed, there is a direct impact on the output of goods and services. So it is imperative that our human capital, our labor, is developed to the extent that they are able to produce the right quality of goods and services that will in turn affect the GDP, affect the economy as a whole. So there is a direct relationship between the development of your human capital and the output of your organization. If you don't develop your human capital, it has a ripple effect. And that's why I started by saying that an organization, an economy is only as strong as its weakest point. So if you don't develop them, so there's this saying in management that if employers of labor are afraid of developing their human capital because there's the worry that if we develop them and they leave. But the flip side is if you don't develop your human capital and they stay, whose loss is that? So it is imperative that we develop our human capital. If we are going to grow as an economy, as a nation, as an organization, it's imperative that we develop our human capital. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go to you, Mrs. Bola Adeniyi. So the question I'm going to ask is, I think I believe from my perspective, that one of the challenges that resource persons in human capital have, human resource partners that they have, is finding suitable human capital. And there has several times, there has been such discussions of not having the right fit and not having adequate manpower, particularly in manufacturing, to be able to address these challenges, address the challenges of having sufficient hands to help with production and help with manufacturing for the better interest of economic growth. How do you think that that can be managed successfully and tackled? I think it's on.
It is on. Well, thank you for that question, and excuse the tom-tom in my mouth. I have a bit of an allergy, so have to keep that in for a little bit. Talent management essentially is what the question is about. Talent management, whether we're talking about the manufacturing industry or any industry in the country or in the world, is very, very key, as we all know. And it all centers around managing the entire spectrum of your workforce. There's a school of thought that says, identify a group, train them, put them on a fast track process and let them shine. Another school of thought says, no, look at the entire organization. Everybody, irrespective of where they are in that ladder, deserves to be trained, deserves to be managed, deserves to have their talent recognized and brought out. So irrespective of whatever school of thought that you believe in or belong to, talent management is key. As in the question that directed from Steph read, actually asks about how do you develop the talent within the manufacturing industry. And it goes back to one of the very essence of our function as human capital consultants, human capital development specialists, is in identifying that talent. We're all aware there's a skills gap. Whether in Nigeria or all over the world, there is a burning skills gap. It was the executive chairman of LinkedIn that said, in today's workforce, there are 3 elements that we need to look at. One is AI and automation. The second one is skills gap. Okay? And the third one is now the increasing independent work that people are doing now. So in the skills gap, it is so, so important that we are able to identify the skills gap that you have, but very, very importantly, grow your people organically. Grow them organically and then look out, a combination. But a lot of organizations get it wrong when they do not look internally and grow their people, so that they bring people in, people become dissatisfied because they believe they can do the work and you've brought somebody on top of them. So I think it's that balance, getting that delicate balance between growing your people organically and bringing in fresh blood so that the company continues to grow. Thank you.
Awesome. I would like to zoom in a bit on that. And yesterday or 2 days ago, I was talking about how my first workplace experience where I was a personal assistant to an architect who had an architectural firm, and the company pretty much was occupied with building construction, right? And when I got the job, I had collected my letter, but before my resumption date, I had 3 days of training. I was sent to EDS, I think Enterprise Development Center or so, to learn how to become an effective personal assistant, which I'd never done before. I guess he just saw that, okay, I had a passion, I could do it. I just come out of school, I just finished my master's at the time. Okay, I think it's something she could do. But I was first sent there. It was a 4-day training on becoming an effective personal assistant. Very intense training. So I resumed day 1 knowing what to do. So, but one of the things, so in my years of practice as an HR professional, training and all that, I found out that it is very rare, if ever, to find an organization that prepare the people for the work before the work. So it's not what pretty much in recruitment, we pretty much are looking for someone who's got it already, right? Who has been trained by someone or who has the experience. And one of the questions I ask is, how does the experience come if it has not been given? So in the manufacturing sector, for example, what do you do, or how do you ensure that this training takes place, and at what point exactly does it come in? And even when it comes in, how do you ensure that learning takes place and is sustainable to ensure that you have the kind of outcomes that you want for your organization?
Well, one thing that I pick up from what you've just said, and that is very key, training beforehand. Apart from the knowledge that you're imparting on that person, you're also helping to build or acculturize the person in the system that they're going into. So I think that's very, very important, the importance of training prior to their resumption. It not only builds knowledge, it also helps them to acculturize for the environment that they're coming in. So how do you do that in the manufacturing sector? Pretty much the same way you do it in any sector. Before the person comes in, arrange programs. It's part of their onboarding program, part of their orientation program. Put them through a training program. Perhaps you probably have something like an academy. A lot of organizations, even in the manufacturing sector, they have an academy, an organizational academy, where whether you're experienced or whether you're a newbie, a new graduate, you go through this academy for a number of days so that by the time you come in, you're hitting the ground running. You are not coming in fresh, you're not coming in unprepared. So this is very, very important, if you're not doing so already, to try and develop an academy where you bring in both your experienced as well as your new graduates into that program. So by the time they come in, they're mixing very quickly with the people who are already on ground. They're understanding the culture very, very rapidly, and that's very, very key to organizational performance.
And shall I
Yes,
say
go
that
ahead.
we found out that people who go through this kind of training before they join have a tendency to stay longer in an organization. We've worked with some organizations, and we've seen that because of that, and even on a quarterly basis, we still see that, okay, these people are still learning. It has helped them to their length of stay in an organization. We see that there is a positive correlation between your onboarding and your length of stay in an organization.
Awesome. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to ask a question to that, but after, I'll just move forward to Dr. Moji Sola. And my question is, I'm going to zoom particularly into one of the key subjects for today, which is the welfare in the manufacturing industry. Did that take you unaware? Your laughter seemed pregnant, 9 months pregnant.
Yes.
Okay. So there's several speculations, pretty much, which I would like you or any of you on the panel today to debunk. And please, if you have questions, please bring them forward so we'd ask our panelists. They are on the hot seat today, and I'll do justice to your questions. What exactly is it about people in the manufacturing industry, workers, not being properly catered to as regards their welfare and their well-being? I do not know if that's operation on a workplace center, but it's a general perception and a general feedback that people in the manufacturing sector have very poor welfare and poor health care as regards maintaining health and ensuring that they have the kind of mindset that keeps them engaged to increase employee engagement and also to help sustain or maintain the organization's expectations from them as well. So what I would like Mrs. Mojisola, I think Madam here she has her mic brandished. You're going to have your turn. So after her, please take it on from her. So let's just flow. Yes,
Okay, I think why she had her mic. Okay, so I'm Muji Olatero like making.
Sorry, can you give her some volume on her mic, please?
Oh, sorry, yeah, they always need to give me volume anyway. That's how.
Okay, yeah.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so talking about welfare, I mean, I can speak to it a little, but there's more of that. I'm actually I'm an engineer, I'm a technology person, I'm a digital person, all the way. So I was going to take it from a holistic point of view in terms of digital skills and all that. But talking about welfare, because I've had 2 short stints in manufacturing in my career development. In construction, interestingly, I was working with well, I was head of IT, but I was also technical assistant to the MD of Costain West Africa. That was Chief Jibono many years ago. And in that industry, so I was very much on ground. I would go to the site. I would do a lot of work there. So, yeah, we saw, and then I did a little with one of the financial card production companies as well, more recently. And what you find in the manufacturing, at least from my experience, you're right, there's a lot of dissatisfaction. And there are a lot of gaps. And why? Because in the past, I think it's the foundational thing, first of all, is that you have in manufacturing, and I think that'll take me to where I was going to come in from. Historically, over the years, we've had a lot of national development plans. Right from 1962 to 1968, the first one, 1970 to 74, the second one, then up to SAP, which was number 5. That's the Structural Adjustment Program. But what you found was that there was never a full implementation. We didn't realize the goals. Why? Because somewhere along the line, even though these fantastic plans were made and government worked, when the oil came in, government started investing in manufacturing and worked with the private sector a lot. But what you found is that there's a lot of, we'll have the machines, we'll have the equipment, we'll have the design brought in from whether it's America or Europe or whichever part of the world. We'll have everything brought in. And I think the first speaker, the keynote speaker, spoke to that slightly as well. Then what will happen? We don't have Nigerians they don't have the skills. So invariably you have to import experts who can do a lot of, Nigerians, if trained, can actually do that. Experts initially, in the 60s, 70s, yes. But after a while, there should begin to be a transference of knowledge, skills transfer, and then people will begin to learn and begin to be able to work and feel valued on the job. So when you don't get a sense of being valued, and invariably there was a dearth of skills. So you find that skills gap has been there for so many of these industrial plants, and even the EGRP, the one 2017 to 2020 that the government put in recently, the Buhari government, to speed us up again. You find that even in that one, there's still, the bottom line is skills gap. Whether you're looking at infrastructure, whether you're looking at manufacturing, whether you're looking at IT, whichever one it is, it's always a skills gap issue. And in my experience at Costain, for example, I think we had a lot of foreign project managers and everything, but there were some, but Chief Jibono was the first African MD at that construction, and he pushed to have a lot of the British guys
train the local guys so that they can begin to come up. And he empowered them, gave them cars, gave them, a lot of responsibility. I got some responsibility as well. So invariably you find, I think one of the keys, so going back to your question, the thing is empowering the local people in the area of intellectual capacity, skills development. Don't just give it to the days are gone. Nigerians do well all over the world. So why can't we do the same here? So that's just the point I'll bring out of hand.
Okay.
So just value people is one.
Thank you so much. You're going to take so what I just want to pick from there is pretty much a thing of succession. What is the succession plan after experts have come in? The succession plan such that you know who exactly is going to take over in the next 10, 15 years, or in the next 5 years, or it could even be a short-term plan. So is succession for transfer of skills short, mid, or long-term? And how do we ensure that it is effectively executed on time? I'm just saying that's what I'm able to draw from what you're saying and contribute to it as well.
Well, that's just one factor. When I mentioned the expert transfer of skills and everything. Then internally, even when you look at locally, because really, my father, he passed last year, was a civil engineer and at the age of 90. So you have that generation of educated Nigerians, engineers in NSC and wherever whatever aspects of Nigerian Society of Engineers, whatever. So there also needs to be transference of skills within as well. And when you look at, and a major challenge is that the connection, we all work in silos. I'll come to your succession plan in a minute. And we find that the connection, making the connection between government, the academia, and business, and the private sector or manufacturing is just not there. Why can't we begin to train our students? Why can't businesses, why can't manufacturing industries take on students, not IT, I did IT. From when I was in uni, like 6 months IT, 4 months. Well, thank God I had a serious.
Is that not what technical colleges were about?
Sorry, that's what we
day?
call IT is. Somebody reminds me again.
No, not interns. I'm speaking of when you responding to what you're saying about taking students and training them. Is that not what industrial or technical colleges were all about back in the day?
We're all about. I like that.
We're
all about. But it's not the same. We're talking about tertiary, as in universities. You find that, lecturers are writing papers. They're writing papers that are so academic, they don't relate to what's going on in the industry. We find that the connection is not there. So, however, NESG and NUC started an initiative about 2 years ago, because I'm also a member of NESG, and whereby the NUC and NESG are working with manufacturing industries as well, so that there will be a tripartite whereby people, but it hasn't actually come into full thing yet, but we need more and more of those initiatives. Abroad, Microsoft or any of these big companies, Google, you'll find that wherever they're situated around universities are nearby, all kinds of industries, they're all around them somewhere, so that these students are learning directly. And so that by the time they're coming out of university, we're not retraining again. What we find that we have to retrain and train again as our students are coming out of university, because they don't have the prerequisites, they haven't been exposed. So that's one of the areas. So in terms of succession plan, sorry, I always take it from a higher level. Sorry about
Stephen
that.
says starts with the end in mind, yes.
Yes. So, going back into an organization, you need to have short-term, mid-term, and long-term plans. You need to recognize even some people recruit, like in the oil and gas. I remember when I was in university, they recruit from school. Yes. And they start training them for the long term. These engineers are looking like they will be the ones that will ultimately take over. But when they get into an organization, from, Mrs. Adeni Itewo said, you begin to identify who are the junior ones, the junior engineers, and not necessarily, because again, we pay a lot of attention to degrees in this nation. There are people who have that acumen and who are intelligent. They're so smart, they don't need a degree, especially in manufacturing. I'm not saying we don't need degrees, I have degrees. But some of them are so you pay attention to people like that who are good with their fingers, who are very, very good. So they may not necessarily have the master's degree, they may not have the PhD, but they're good at what they do. And in this day and age of all kinds of whether it's AI, whether it's data analytics, whether it's robotics, whether it's IoT, Internet of Things, name it. We have so much of it out there. So people can really, so I think the thing is to be able to spot talent early and then know how to put them into the various, so that you start succession planning from an early time. So that by the time they there'll be a good exchange of hands.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Mrs. Bola Adeni, would you like to contribute to that as well, to the aspect of welfare, probably succession planning and whatever it is, perspective? Okay. What other perspective you have concerning
Picking up on your question on welfare earlier, and in the manufacturing industry, it just took me back to a couple of years ago when we had to do a presentation to companies in the free zone territory, where there are a number of manufacturing companies there. And one of the questions they asked us as HR consultant is, so what can you do for us in terms of welfare? Especially in companies where you have a lot of people in the factory, where there are long hours, where the welfare policies may not necessarily suit the workers. So this question, of course, was coming from the company itself. Now, that shows the importance welfare is in the manufacturing industry. If as consultant, you are being called to see what you can prefer, what sort of solutions you can prefer to make sure the welfare is improved in terms of long working hours, conditions of service. Now, we can be talking about this in an everyday scenario, but we're no longer in an everyday scenario. And that takes us to the topic that Dr. Mrs. O was talking, or the areas she was talking on about digitalization, the future of work, and how things should be going forward. That's really where this conversation should be heading. Otherwise, it'll all just be business as usual. Before 2000, just towards the end of 2020, towards the end of 2019, we were talking about the future of work. Now we're talking about the now of work. So when we're talking about welfare and the now of work, we're not talking about how did you manage welfare in the past. That no longer would work. How are you going to manage welfare of the future? Now, imagine a scenario where somebody joins your organization today and he has on his phone an app that enables him to do everything he needs, right, concerning his welfare. He does not need to go and knock on the door of any HR manager. He's able to do things on the phone himself. He has a self-service app that can deal with all the issues he needs to. He has a direct contact to his HMO. If he's ill, he can click on there. If he has an issue with wellness, an issue with a personal problem, he can attend to it on the tip of his fingers, using, as you said, technology. I think that's the conversation we should be talking about now. And I think that itself is a challenge to our government bodies, to all these institutions who are partnering with corporate organizations. How do we partner together to ensure technology helps us to drive the welfare of our future employees, the current employees and our future employees? And that, of course, also relates to skills development that she has talked about. Thank you.
So maybe I'll just add a few things to that. I think one of the things I started by saying is an organization, an economy, a nation is only as strong as its weakest link. Why do I say that? I mean, I was on my drive time today to work. It was all bad news on the news. It was all bad news, breakdown of security and law and security, breakdown of law and order. You hear things that were foreign to us in this side of the divide. You hear people taking their lives and all of that. Now, it's a whole ecosystem of things. Now, what has this got to do with welfare? In the manufacturing, you'll find that there's a high propensity to automate things. There's a lot of automation that goes on in the manufacturing industry. And with automation, there's the risk of people losing their jobs. There's the risk of some jobs being outsourced. And what we find in a lot of outsourced arrangements, because this is what we deal with every other day, the employees tend to see themselves as second-class citizens. We are the ones doing the work. They are the ones getting the money. We are the ones. So that always exists. With automation, some of these jobs will be displaced. But not all of them will be displaced. There's still the need and there's still the place for the human touch, for these people to be part of the organization. How do we as business owners and HR professionals begin to come to the table? I mean, there was something the keynote speaker said. It's not about coming up with a policy and then we just come out and announce it without thinking about the ripple effects. Most of these people that their jobs will be affected are low-income earners. Their jobs have become repetitive. But you'll be amazed that that low-income earner that you see has 10 mouths feeding on that his meager salary. So you cut off his salary, mental wellness affected, 10 other lives affected, and all of that. So I think as business owners in the manufacturing industry, we need to take the idea of collaboration as business owners and HR professionals to see the issue of welfare, mental well-being, mental wellness as a very important factor in the manufacturing sector. And sometimes it's not about money, because there's the tendency to think when you talk about welfare, you're talking about it always, they say HR is a cost center. It's always, I want, bring this, but it goes way beyond that. Sometimes it's not in the money, it's in, family functions, something that caters to the children. You have organizations that see to the welfare of the employee itself, but sometimes it's that little extra for the family. So it's in that development, okay, go for this course, go for this, learn this skill, learn this trade, because even if they leave the organization today, what next for them? They're your alumni, they're your ambassadors. So you shouldn't leave them and they shouldn't be able to fend for themselves. Even if because of robotic process automation, you automate a process and they have to lose their jobs, they shouldn't have to lose their standing in life altogether if they've been empowered to succeed beyond working in your organization. I think at the end of all of this, this is what matters. Beyond your organization, can they survive? And I think we need to come to the table and have these discussions more and more. Thank you.
Thank you. Picking it up from there, back in the day when we had mining and we had our agro-allied companies still functioning, there was a whole lot of employment for the people that we consider to be at the low end of the divide. And with the progression of life and the changes and stepping into the fourth industrial revolution and all of that, we see a lot of automation. And like you said, it's inevitable. Some people will have to lose their jobs. In Nigeria, for example, our peculiarity, one of the greatest challenges we have as a people is unemployment. And at the end of the day, we know the saying that the child who you refuse to train will not allow your child to sleep. Right? So manufacturing being the industry that catered to this large volume, because before automation, you could have people, you can do mass recruitments because you need the hands. Presently is having to engage in a lot of technology. What would you prefer as a solution for national good? Because at the end of the day, our institutions will not be able to stand in a broken state. So whatever we do as a people, we have to consider where these people will fit in so that our children can sleep and so that we can have a nation to call ours. What are the options from your perspective to say, like you have said, what after work? After work, what next? How do we find a solution to the mass level of unemployment that is presently plaguing us as a nation? Madam, please, Madam Bola, you can take it up from there.
Okay, I mentioned earlier that one of the three elements in a changing workforce is the rising independence of work. Rising independent work. In as much as everybody's looking to employers of labor to work, there are only so many or so the limited opportunities to get into corporate organizations. And that is why serious government, and Nigeria is doing quite a bit in that space, is trying to promote vocational work. vocational training so that, or retraining, so that people can become independent. Now, you mentioned that a lot of people are being displaced from work. Manufacturing companies are letting go of a lot of people. Now, imagine a situation where a frontline conveyor belt worker loses his job. Now, Dr. Mrs. O mentioned something earlier, and it's very important, a very important point, that academic qualifications are very key. We cannot undermine that. However, more and more skills and competence is trumping academic qualifications.
Yep.
Now, skills and competence in areas of vocational training will be key for the success of our country. If we spend more time, more resources retraining people in vocational work, we will see that we'll go a long way. As I said, that is not to undermine corporate employment, but we have a huge workforce, we have a huge population who not all of them will end up in university. A lot of them who are university workers will lose their job because of automation, as Mrs. Omataya Benson has said. How would we help retrain these people so that they can be independent? So if you go through a proper vocational school, you are able to develop enough skill, you can set up your shop. You can set up your shop as a carpenter, as an electrician, or any other vocational training, and that's going to help the unemployment rate in the country.
Fantastic. You want to add something to it? Okay. And I'd written something down. So I said degree and or experience. Degree and or experience.
So degree.
Degree on experience. So we talked about the importance of, yes, it's good to have a degree. Some of us have 3, some have 6. A doctor, I'm sure you have like 19. So let's not even like 19, right? But so there are people that have degrees. These days, I see a lot of people say, oh, let me go get another. They want to get a certification. They want to get a degree because they believe that's what will be recognized. And they go as far as getting a master's without any hands-on knowledge or experience. So they come to the table with their masters and they're still novices. Right? So when it now and then you find out that they are on the job, but they are pretty much like executive assistants who just left school. So which is most important? So for the manufacturing industry, degree, would you, if you see someone, so let's give a typical example. If someone came to you at the recruitment table who has probably finished from Harvard, we kind of use that to threaten ourselves. Is finished from Harvard, he has a master's in construction from Harvard, but no working experience. And someone comes with 15 years of experience of hands-on experience for the same job role that you've put out there, that you're trying to fill. What would your option be and why? That's a difficult question. That's why, that's a difficult question. That's why I directed it to a doctor. Yes.
There you go. Okay, it's if he's coming, you want a yes or no? Who would I pick? Or
whether yes or no, it's not. There are no right or wrong answers. So why? Whatever your option, why?
Okay, so I think it really depends on what you're looking for at that point in time. The level of so basically, if you
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. So if someone comes with a Harvard degree and speaks all the English,
the smile on your face, the Harvard just makes you, when even at recruitment we know how we behave. One just Harvard, like, oh, Harvard, let's sit upright.
So what I find is that from experience, I find that a person with a hands-on experience has knowledge about the contextual issues. And context, when I say context, country context. He's been on site, like in construction. He knows how all these construction people work. He knows how he's been on the shop at the floor, machine floor and everything, However, so it depends on his level of exposure. If the organization has been exposing, he has a lot of training as well behind his belt. He's been exposed to management training. He's been exposed to, so that he can see things because it's okay to have experience, hands-on experience, but you need also to be able to see things from a higher perspective. So if he's been exposed to a lot of trainings, like going out to understand strategy, maybe short trainings here and there to back his experience. So he will probably be a good fit. However, if, which again, it depends on the role. If you're just looking for a role for someone just to implement and finish this job, then he's good to go. But if you're looking for a role where ultimately it's going to grow into a senior management, vision, you're going to, you're looking into the future, automation, you're bringing in all the industrial 4.0 and all that, you know. Even though this guy may not have the experience, is he willing to come off, you know, well, he may not be on a high horse, but is he willing to come down, roll up his sleeves, and get to know what's going on locally? If he is, he may be also a good resource. So
it's neither here nor there. So you didn't
really
quite say yes or no.
Yeah, because it really, it's very contextual, that
yes,
question.
Actually
very contextual.
Yes, yes.
It really depends on, you know, there are different reasons you hire. Different reasons. So you might want to, and in this side of the divide, we place a lot of emphasis on degrees. There's a lot of, you know, you want to see all the qualifications, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the person can deliver, has the contextual application of, you know, everything you've learned in school. That being said, the purpose of your recruitment. So if for the purpose of this recruitment, okay, you want this person to be able to attend high-end meetings so that when I present this person, there is the Harvard in front of my name, there's the that, and then right behind that person is that one that has the experience. So it really depends on that. Sometimes you hire for political reasons.
Yes, I know.
Political reasons. Oh, this person's surname is, let me use my surname, Omotayo Benson. No, let me use my own. Let me make myself feel important. You know, but I mean, so I want this name to open doors for me. I want this qualification when you're presenting your bid and you say our CIO is from Harvard. We know he doesn't have the contextual, but when I see that, I'm like, these people know what they're talking about. It may not necessarily be the case. So at the end of the day, what's your reason for hiring this person? And you must have, I think every recruitment has a strategy and a purpose behind it, and that should be at the fore of every recruitment exercise you're going through.
Okay, just to, you want to say something? Okay, just to touch again on welfare. When we talked about how to, of course, you mentioned that many of the gaps are because of the past experiences of probably seeing a lot of experts coming in, and then they begin to ask themselves, but I can do this too, why am I not given the opportunity to do it? So how do we begin to change that narrative? Plus, I want to ask pretty much, what's the structure like? Because what's the structure how does the structure in a manufacturing industry affect positively or negatively employee engagement? When I say how does the structure, so what kind of structure, pretty much organizational structure is there? Is it a flat structure? It's a hybrid structure or whatever? Yes. So how does that affect positively or negatively employee engagement, which is pretty much where welfare comes in?
So in terms of
I'm throwing it open. Okay, yes, you can go ahead. Yes. To either of you.
Take the first one and then maybe she can take the second one. So the first question was, how do we begin to change the narrative? Yes. You know, so like, I mean, I think Mrs. Taiwo spoke to it initially in terms of training, whether it's the vocational skills we do from that level, because we've had even manufacturing industries, some industries bring in, some organizations bring in even people at that level, machinists to the country. So even, I don't even have to go abroad. I mean, I don't even have to go far. When I think about the construction, if somebody is building a house for you, they'll ask, are the workers from Togo? Is the Tyler from Togo? Is he local? You know, that kind of thing, because we feel the work. So our TVET skills is very important. Our training in the technical vocational educational training, TVET. It's very key. The quality of that is key, so that we can begin to do that. And I think what we can also do on a higher level is making sure that we have these collaborations with other governments, for example, one thing the federal government has done in the area of e-government, for example, which you may not look at it as a manufacturing, but it affects everything. They're working with South Korea, which is the top country in IT. Working with South Korea, sending people to South Korea and back and forth, and we're learning, and we now actually have a center in Abuja where people are being trained. So a lot of training, a lot of exchange, just purposefully, and policy is very important. I forgot about that, legislation and policy, ensuring that at a certain point in time, people are trained at a certain level. You have, a certain percentage of local input in terms of not just local content, but even local content in terms of skills as well, just like the local content bill in there. So we begin to, I think those things will help us change the narrative. And also just developing our young people, because from school, it starts from school. It starts from the federal government, whether teaching robotics in school, teaching, and not just for the expensive, the elitist schools only. Begin to find how we can begin to bring it to the regular child. Begin to, from the schools to the universities, begin to train skills at that level, so that when a project is coming in, you're looking at what are the skills we have locally, what are the deficiencies, and if someone does have to come in from abroad, because we can't do it all, there's a limited timeline in which he must or she must transfer skills to the local people, and we begin to build it that way. So,
Thank you. Would you like to speak to structure, please?
I think that the beauty of the manufacturing sector, conglomerates, multinationals in that area, is they're very, very structured processes. In terms of structure, it's very clear, and a lot of it, as I said, in the multinationals, handed over down by the headquarters, just a way of doing things. Unlike a lot of small businesses that you come in, you can't really see your way through your career, so to speak. So in terms of the structure, what enables that is when you are able to come into an organization and see your map, your career map, where you are headed. Whether you come in as a young person, you know that within 15 years, there's a possibility, if I work hard, where I can climb through and be sitting at the table where decisions are made. Now, that's not for everybody, obviously. Okay? So you want to put yourself in that situation where you are talent that moves across that very quickly. We have one of our colleagues who is in the manufacturing industry, who comes from the manufacturing industry, and she described to us how within 15 years, coming in as a newbie, so to speak, she was able to attend cross-functional training, as the doctor has mentioned here. Cross-posting sometimes, you are able to go abroad and come back, and then end up, even though you have an engineering background, end up as head of HR. So that's a fantastic opportunity in that kind of industry, where irrespective of what you studied in school, there are plans to take you through different functions and end up in an area that's completely not your area of focus, just because you have been trained cross-functionally. So I think that in the manufacturing industry aids that process.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And I think I've drilled them enough, don't you think? Please put your hands together for these amazing panelists this morning. But then there are more questions. Now I'm going to throw you open to the floor. Oh yes, no, do not drop your mics yet. Was that applause for them? Could you? I think they did really well. Yes, they did. Thank you. So I'm not quite sure if this is a question or a conclusion or an affirmation, or I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'll just read that out. It says there is a saying that the human resource department undersells homegrown qualification compared to expatriates. There are no standards as regards salaries and allowances as it is done in developed countries. So that is the background. I'm assuming there's a question after this, but there is no question. So let's try and coin a question out of this. What do you think?
I'll just say that.
Yes.
I've heard what you have written there. What I'll just say is that I think that it is important, you and I, we must stop seeing it as them. It's you and I. It's you and I, where how do I say this? But the time has come where business owners and human resource professionals must be at the table and discuss and have strategies around this. Have you made a point? Yes. But the change begins with you and I. The change begins with, instead of buying a George's shoe, why don't I buy butter? Even in things like that, because if you buy butter, you are promoting homegrown. And if you don't promote homegrown, if there's no demand for homegrown products, there will be no demand for homegrown. We won't have to undersell the home.
Undersell home, also what's undersell homegrown qualification?
Yes. And permit me to say that, so the Workplace Center was born out of a desire to help bridge the gap between output from school and their readiness for the workplace. If we're going to be very truthful to ourselves, sometimes what we get as outputs from school is not the standard yet. So there's a lot of work to be done. And so sometimes even in our own assessment, because we do a lot with the young people and with youth and new entrants into the workplace. And when we run assessments, it's not great what we see sometimes. Sometimes the issue is not even unemployment. Sometimes the greater issue is unemployability. Is that correct?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes. Unemployability. Graduates don't know how to ask the right questions. They don't know how to communicate. Basics. So it's not necessarily the whole idea of underselling what we have, but there is work to be done on what we have. And we have to be realistic, and we have to be truthful to ourselves that there are issues that we need to face. So HR business owners must be more deliberate about their strategy around developing the workforce, which is what this discussion is all about. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll just lend a bit of a narrative to that. Sometime in 2014-15, early 2015, when I was still in full-time HR practice, I had a mandate to fill up a few roles. So I had gone 2 days back-to-back, and I had interviewed 48 people. And I couldn't choose one. It was so heartbreaking, and I asked myself, I didn't school abroad. I schooled in Nigeria. I'm Bruce Ali University, Ekoma. I did my master's in University of Ilorin. I schooled here. How is it that I can't see someone to pick? Those that came with 2-1 could not defend it. I was deeply pained, and I just said, okay, we complain a lot as Nigerians. What can I do? Which is what she said. What can I do from my standpoint to change the narrative, which is a question we all need to ask ourselves. And what I did was I wrote a letter to NYSC Abuja headquarters, to say, I'm an HR professional, I'm a certified life coach, and I would like to offer free coaching services to core members anytime they come into camp.
And have you even had this
They
experience?
eventually...
You want to train them and they're asking you, won't you give me money for feeding if you want
Yeah,
to come?
right? So it's such things where interestingly, NYSC eventually responded in 2016, April, and said I should approach the state where I am, approach the head office. And I went to Babs Anima Shaun. I presented the letter to them. And from 2017 till date, I go to Iyanokpaja every time there's a new set, when they're coming in and when they're going out, to speak to them about being employable. And those are the kind of things we need to do, because it's not about what the government can do. What can we do to change the narrative? What can we contribute? What do we have? It costs a lot to have to go. I have to go from Lekki to Iyanokpaja every time. Sometimes I go if there are 2 batches coming a month, I go twice. Right? But the thing is, just like she said, we need to stop seeing it as them, but we. Up until we start seeing at how it affects us, the collective good, then we'll be able to contribute our quota to it in however way it is, whatever.
So can I
You
whatever
have a
way we
domestic
can.
staff working with you, and this domestic staff has not improved, then why are you pointing fingers at the next?
Yeah, it starts from there. Thank you. Doctor, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, so piggybacking on what you said, we have a non-profit. We call it the Workplace Youth Initiative, where we've been training young people on technical skills as well as basic soft skills. How to the soft skills, how to interview, how to present yourself, some gaps in just some fundamental things. But then we've partnered with the likes of Oracle Academy just to train them, and even getting, and then sometimes when we shortlist, we don't even get enough because we just don't get enough of people, and they're not IT people. We just pick them from students, some non-graduates, some we do what we call the Christmas gift of knowledge, where we just get people to sponsor individuals. And they come in there, some are even still in secondary school. We make sure they're not advantaged children, young people. And we teach them some basic skills, and some of them have become like graphic artists, digital marketers, and those kind of things. But what I find, and if you don't mind, if I have a minute, I had an experience once. When Rockefeller, we're doing a program with Rockefeller in 2015 and training people, we're going all over the country. And there's a particular state we got to. Maybe I shouldn't mention the state. But we were literally held captives because they believed that they should, it was their entitlement. And why do we have to train them? After we trained them on how to earn money online and things like that, they wanted the laptops. And we were taking these laptops from state to state. And it always became a riot. And we had to be delivered and saved. About my team and I. This was an independent project we were doing. Because people they had a sense of entitlement. And that's where I'm going, that sense of entitlement. So it's a two-way street. Our young people, maybe it's the values of the society. And I don't blame them because really our values have changed. Leadership, my generation, the generation before, we haven't shown the right things. And invariably, so when the younger people are coming, all they want to do is just to step up and make it quickly. And it's not going to happen that way, So we need to learn also to be patient and be willing to learn. There are opportunities out there.
Awesome.
And be willing to learn.
Thank you so much. Do we have more questions from the house, please? We're in our Q&A session now. If you have a question, please put your hands up. A mic will find its way to you in the shortest possible time. Do we have any questions?
But as we're waiting for the next question, let me just ask, because your question was very specific. Obviously, somebody who asked a question that said, HR professionals seem to prefer this to that. Interestingly, we're all HR professionals, and it's very interesting, actually, Steph,
They pointed a gun at us.
They pointed a gun. So let's address that point. Steph, I said it's very interesting to see we're very, very similar in our thought process in developing the youth in Nigeria. So kudos to that.
Okay.
One of the best people I've ever recruited, I tell this story any opportunity that I can. Young man, University of Ife. So it's not about the degree or where you got it from. Chooks. Mm-hmm. It's about the mindset. Biola started something and said, it's all about, start with you. You. Now this young man never stepped out of the shores of this country. Never had been anywhere. He came to me for an interview. I'd met him a few years ago, and he sent me an email first, reminding me of the 4 years before he had got his degree at University of Ife, and thanked me for that opportunity to meet him. Again, in his communication was something that was very key. He wasn't writing me to say, I need a job. They're teaching us something at the moment in this our board mentorship program in Wimbis. If you're looking for a board position, that board member that's going to give you that opportunity is not interested in the fact that you want a board position. The first way you start is refer to maybe a meeting you've had with that person, the impact that person has had on you, and how in the future it would be nice to connect with that person. If that young man from University of Ife had said, I finished at University of Ife, I did very well, can you get me a job? He would have shut that door right there. This young man said, I just want to thank you that I met you 4 years ago. I want to let you know how I've done since those 4 years you met me. And if in future there's an opportunity to meet with you, I'd love to do that. Immediately I responded to him. I said, I'd love to meet you. That is how you get into the door. Now, this young man came to my office. I thought I'll spend 15 minutes, 20 minutes with him. I spent the next 2.5 hours. There was nobody I'd met in that time frame that has been more engaging as a young graduate. He had researched everything about any topic. This young boy had read virtually on any topic. He had known everything about the places abroad where she had gone to school. He had researched our company, and we were engaged with him for 2.5 hours. It started with him, not about the school he went to. Please, let's get off that horse. Let's get off the horse of, because I went to this university, that's why they did not take me. It has nothing to do with your university. It's develop your mind. Develop it. One thing we do as mothers, right from now, how are you teaching your young ones to read? She has young children. I know what she's doing with them. How are you making them independent-minded? So that by the time they get into university, whether they have left this country or not, they will get a job. That is what matters. So please, let's focus on the things that are important in developing ourselves so that when you do meet recruiters, they will not take anybody abroad over you. Thank you.
Thank you so
And
much.
should I say that particular person got hired by IBM out of the country? Another case in point was another intern we took on. And what stood out about him was the fact that he wasn't entitled. He was grateful for every opportunity. And after that internship program, today he's working with Facebook. He's on scholarship with Facebook.
Wow.
These are abroad. These are people that come. It's not about the school they came from. It's not about their grades, but their ability to think, their ability to, gratitude, life skills. So these are testimonials. These are one or two of the many others that we've actually worked with and are doing very well where they are today.
Awesome. So what I hear is change perspective and see from the, please, do we have any questions? I think our panelists have done an amazing job. I think they have, and they deserve a round of applause. Thank you so much. Our time is fast spent, so I'm just going to do a quick recap. And we're talking about welfare for the manufacturing sector, and I think they talked about it greatly. So if you're in the manufacturing sector, I'm sure there were many things that could have picked from that. Train your people, train and retrain. Do not be afraid of whether they're going to leave or not. If they leave, what's the cost, the loss that you could suffer if they stay and you don't train them? So you have untrained and people in your system. And then what is the possibility of them staying after you would train them? I think we should look more at possibilities than at probabilities that these things can work. And then talked about also training, planning, succession planning from a very young age, looking towards how to begin to build these people from university, from school, prepare them for a future, a short, a mid, or a long-term future. Madam here talked about the fact that, yes, we're in the fourth industrial revolution, probably even moving towards the fifth. How do you ensure that we're able to successfully integrate technology into our welfare packages such that there is a balance between how we operate in the organization using the regular, or rather the contemporary, is it the contemporary or the old school method of welfare, and integrating that with the new school or even the future school of welfare, and just ensure that there's a balance and that people are able to get the kind of welfare that will help them be effective on the job and help the organization's goals to be achieved. Talked about structure. I totally liked your perspective on structure, madam, about the fact that it's not necessarily bringing someone in, and in manufacturing, for example, there are different areas, right? There are different areas of there are different disciplines. And one of the things, I once worked in a place where it was a flat structure, and the people were disgruntled, and they're like, no, we do not have a hierarchy. It's everybody's there. And I said, one of the best ways to ensure that you sustain employee engagement and increase it in a flat structure is diagonal movements. Everybody cannot move up, right? So you can practice diagonal movements. So one person is in operations for 3 years, you move him to credit for the next whatever, you move him to technical, you move him, so you just keep moving. So what happens is learn a new skill. It's a new experience because it's something totally different from what they were doing. So they're expanding their minds, they're expanding their possibilities, even if they're not moving up, right? So that way they can also, so they're looking forward to, oh, where's the next department I'm going to go to? Oh, this was quite interesting. I want to try something else. So that's another way of also increasing welfare in our manufacturing sectors. I hope I was able to give a good summary to that, and every other thing was heard. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together again for these three amazing women who I have been privileged to know. You know, I am a millennial. Yes, I was born in 1980. That's where millennial starts from, right? Yes. And millennials, we do what? We take selfies. So, yes, if anybody that came here, if you notice they went away, they are not millennials. They are old school. They are baby bloomers. And who? Yes, but how do you know that I'm a millennial if I do not take? Oh, yeah. And there's an angle to selfie taking. There's an angle to it. Say cheese. No, I have to do a video to this. Nah, it's not easy. Sorry, that's part of millennials. Millennials, that's our behavior. Yes, we have the millennial. Yes, you see, she did peace in the air. She was born in 19. You see, that's why she can do peace. You see, we rock millennials. All the mommies are just smiling. They're just cute, right? And they're waving. They smile and wave. They just smile and wave. They smile and wave. But we do peace. Please show them that we're millennial. Yes, that's a fantastic one. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for these amazing panelists as they go back to their seats. And thank you for... Okay, hold on. I think the convener would like to have a moment with us.
Before the next session, I'd like to just go over the names of our exhibitors that we have here in the hall. I won't be able to go through all of them at the moment because we still have some other sessions we need to cover, and in the course of this conference, we'll do justice to recognizing all of them. But please do well to join in this conversation on our social media platforms using the hashtag EMWA2021. Please, in all of your social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and the likes. And make sure you engage the conversation, and let's keep the news going as wide as we can. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a whole lot of exhibitors right here across the hall. From and within, we have Atlas Copco. We have Octolog. And also we have the Bank of Industry. You know what the Bank of Industry stands for, and for most of our businesses, small-scale businesses, even the large ones, if you need advisory services on financing, and then funding. The Bank of Industry will always be there for you at every point in time. They are at my right-hand side, if you can see. And they will always be there to give you guidance on how to get fundings for your business. We have a Briscoe here with us as well, also exhibiting their products. We have Rena. So at some point in all of this, we'll give you time to go around and check through all the booths and then see all of the products that they're offering and how you can be a part. If you are here to partner, then how you can be a partner in the process. Ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't want to waste much of our time because I know sometimes we get really itchy to see all of the things that are being displayed and how we can be a part of it. And like I told you earlier, we have we have other sessions we need to also cover as well. While the HR panelists were talking, a lot of things and ideas were just popping up, and a lot of questions, but I know if I begin to ask all of these questions, we may need to stretch this session a bit further, but I think maybe on a one-on-one session I could do all of my asking and all of that. But this question really comes to mind when I know it's quite a lot when individuals begin to come up with the initiative to want to solve the problem that has been caused, you know, the rot that has been happening for close to about, let's say 4 years, or let's say a decade. For instance, a child goes to school, the university, for instance. You spend, say, 4 years minimum. And then in all 4 years, you've learned things that were practically irrelevant. And I know how stressful it can be to want to erase all of the 4 years experience in just probably maybe 2 weeks. It's a lot. So this is the idea. How wouldn't it be better if HRO becomes a part of the process even in our curriculums in schools? How does it work? Because I remember I studied accounting, but I can tell you for a fact, I didn't know what software accounting software was until I got out of school. And I must be very frank with you. So I spent 4 years doing balance sheet and trial balance and balancing money that was not mine. And then you eventually hit an interview, and then they ask you, what kind of accounting software can you use? And then you are turning and you're like, yeah, it was down to me developing myself, but sometimes we don't all have that, all right, to develop. But the system could help us at some point. So if my lecturer who's teaching me understands that in the current accounting world, accounting software is what is most paramount, why do you teach me trial balance with head knowledge? Why don't I do trial balance with the maybe QuickBook or Sage 50? So when I get out of school after 4 years, I meet an interviewer and I tell him or her, I have a 4 years experience using QuickBook. Isn't that even more beautiful? Because we even have entrepreneurship and whatever study in our university, and they teach us how to do soap on writing. We can't even learn that. Into transforming maintenance, repair operations with technology. How, to drive maintenance and repair operations with technology. This is a technological age, and we hope that we learn a lot from this session. Ladies and gentlemen, please, without wasting further time, I'd like to bring on the podium the person of Godson Inke Kunloye. Please put your hands together for him as we have him on the podium. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I want us to put our hands together for the team that put this together. They've done an amazing job. I mean, it's that kind of thing that you have in your head and you say, someday I will do it. And then you see someone doing it. I want to really thank you for the opportunity to be here today. So today I'm going to be, I do transformation. I lead transformation in mostly manufacturing-oriented organizations. And today, I'm a software major. I've spent a very good part of my life dealing with systems and softwares in this space. So I'm going to take you on a journey on what the problems are and how technology is going to be solving this. Next. Right. I mean, 80% of the people here today are probably either you're a buyer or you're a seller. It's a supply chain with two extreme stakeholders. Somebody is selling, another is buying. Why are you buying? Because you have a problem. And what's the problem? Generally and globally, within the spare parts supply chain, everybody is faced with the same kind of challenges, which revolves around high cost of maintenance. As a business leader, your job, your focus is how do you keep your maintenance costs down, reduce the number of times you have downtimes, because I mean it leads to drop in your productivity. Being able to keep just about the right size of inventory that ensures that you are running efficiently, not holding more inventory than you need or less than you require. But a lot of those are very global in nature. Because of where we are, Nigeria, we also seem to have some very unique problems that are very peculiar to our market. And some of them is what I want to focus on. And then we'll go through a journey how technology is helping us remedy some of these. One of them is lead time. Over 80% of the input materials in the manufacturing industry today is heavily dependent on some form of importation. Raw materials, spare parts, know-how, skill, it's heavily dependent on importation. I mean, if you look around here today, you see a lot of the brands are obviously not local brands. And then, of course, price volatility. If I bought this microphone 2 years ago, I'll probably be paying half the price it's going for today. And what does that make you do as a supply chain person, as a sourcing person? I want to hold more of this microphone. I want to keep it in my inventory because I'm scared that in 6 months from now, the price is going to escalate. And this leads to a lot of surplus and overstocking, tying up a lot of capital that could be deployed in other aspects of the business. Capability issues. We buy equipment where we don't have enough manpower or know-how on how to either run it or maintain it. So you hear things like fly and fix. Systems break down and you have to fly in an expert to come and fix it because there is no local capability. And then you have visibility and fragmentation. I was talking to a friend of mine who runs a tannery in Kano. And I said, why are you not setting up a tannery in Lagos where the market is? He looks at me and he smiles. He says, at every point in time, I have 6 months worth of supplies in my warehouse. It gives us, so you begin to see it in the marketplaces. People kind of cluster together in one place or the other. But the elephant in the room is in the equipment itself. Because of course, availability of capital, a lot of the businesses in this market start up with some level of aftermarket equipment, meaning that very few people go out to buy new equipment. We go out to buy reconditioned equipment, refurbished equipment, and say we make it up as we go. But I want us to actually pay attention to this graph. It's called the maintenance curve. Now, when you acquire a new asset, a brand new asset, two things happen. You have high cost and high reliability. And then over time, you see these two starts going down. Reliability starts dropping. The total cost of ownership, of course, starts dropping. And something starts going up, maintenance. I mean, for as little as our automotive vehicles, what you see is 80+% of the cars that come in Nigeria coming after the age of 5. That's right here. You can see the pink corner on the graph. That is, the equipment starts life in Nigeria when it becomes economically not viable to keep running it. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. Many economies have been built from here. I remember a few years ago, I was doing a project when Airtel moved from, I think, the previous owners to Airtel. And the mandate was, oh, all these equipments are obsolete. We're going to throw them out and get new ones. And the new owner said, no, we're going to use them and we're going to get the value of the investment from them. And for 3 years straight, they won the best network of the year using obsolete equipment. So what's important here? Aging in itself is not a problem. It is what you know about the equipment that's important, right? So now that we're here, we have a challenge. How, for people like us who start life in the midlife of the equipment or end of life, then maintenance and optimization should be high on our priority list to ensure that we're able to drive the right value. Data shows that asset-intensive companies will typically spend about 10% of their total revenue on maintenance, repair, and operations. An MRO is responsible for 5% of your revenue. Then when you go about fixing your issues at the time when you have breakdown, you are spending just about 5 times the cost. How about if you can predict, if you can, to some extent, dimension issues before they happen? It costs you a bit less, a lot less to remedy them at that point than when you have a breakdown and the whole value chain comes to a halt until you fix such a thing. And then with other inherent problem of quality, you start making substandard products because of equipment malfunction, and then exposing your personnel and customers to some health and safety risks. These are some very peculiar challenges that is in our space. So today we are looking at how is technology helping us unlock this. I start by saying that the success of an MRO operation stands on 3 core pillars. One is the people. The last panel was talking about recruitment, which I find very interesting. People is at the base of success. What processes have you put in place? How much do you know about your equipment? What are the maintenance plans? How many of it is preventive? What's your inventory looking like? Who does what? Are there procedures? Are there checklists for this equipment? And then, of course, what systems are you using to tie all this together? Okay, next, please. Next. So there's quite a lot of technology out there that's helping organize the whole maintenance space. But I'm going to just focus on these 5, which I think is core to our market, not just Nigeria, but across the region, across the mid-sub-Saharan African market. We're going to look at the Internet of Things, maintenance management systems, how predictive analytics is helping us optimize the limited resources that we have to deploy with regards to maintenance. Of course, inventory management, and electronic sourcing. If you ask anyone in procurement or purchasing department of companies, there are activities they don't like. Why? Because it takes so much time, so much effort from you, and you're still not guaranteed of getting the best. The element of risk is still there. We're going to see how technology is closing that gap, closing the sourcing cycle, and helping you get it right on the first attempt. Next. Internet of Things. We hear it every day. It means different things to people. But in this industry, when you say Internet of Things, it's simply being able to deploy internet-enabled devices on our equipment and machinery and plants, detect issues before they happen, so that someone can remedy it. Things like temperature. If a piece of equipment is heating up, how do you know? Is there something that picks it up and raises a flag, sends an email, an SMS, or something that stops you from running that equipment to the ground? So a lot of these sort of devices have been deployed in so many operations in the West. However, remember in the previous slides, we said equipment arrive here towards the end of life. So what you find out is that some of the equipment deployed here are equipments of previous generation or 2 generations behind that are not fitted with this sort of features, right? They are not driven by technology to an extent. They are very mechanical. But these days, there are sensors that help you pick up viscosity, temperature, vibration, and all those sort of things early enough for you to remedy it before your equipment shut down. Okay? And that's what, and every setup is different. Every plant, every client, every assembly line is completely unique in its way. So deploying this requires some level of expertise. And that's why I said earlier on that it stands on 3 things: people, process, and systems. And then, of course, the big elephant is the maintenance. I don't know how many companies run a maintenance management system. I mean, I've been around, and what I see is people trying to wing an ERP system as a maintenance management system.